Hey everybody, Scott Stevens here on Scott's Weather. Let's call it that. My old field, just looking at the weather and the crazy things going around the country. And when you're on TV, uh, feeds come in from the network, weather stories, weather cover videos, B-roll of situations that other affiliates have uploaded or uplinked to the network, and then they kind of scan through the good stuff or just send it all, depending on the capacity available on the day. And then the producer at the station that you're working in, or I was working in, would say, "Hey, Scott, what about this, this, and this?" I'm like, "Sure, let's look at this one. It's relevant to that." So that's kind of the nice thing about social media now is the menu, the topics, the quantity of video that we have to play with is so much greater. And you don't have to get some satellite time to uplink from Honduras or from Nicaragua to look at video from Hurricane Ada that just went ashore in the last 48 hours. It is a much, much weaker event. All right, let's roll over here. And just an FYI, I'm over on BitChute now, sharing my Another Perspective show that just aired a little bit ago, where we are able to, and I'm able to talk about some of these other topics. So over at BitChute, there's my name, Scott Stevens, and then we can scroll through and see the menu of shows that I've uploaded there. I do two a week, just so you know, and that's enough to hit these other topics that when I was at work, if you want to call it that, I'm in the studio. I'm out of the newsroom usually, but we always had talks, and they were always "What do you think about this, Scott? What do you think about that?" So it's kind of cool to have a different kind of a platform to be able to share these things with you. All right, Honduras and Nicaragua hammered with Ada that had winds upwards of 150 miles an hour, which puts it in Cat 5 range. And we've just had a crazy season, and it doesn't appear that we're done with this just yet. But the water came hard and fast, and this terrain is largely hilly. And having spent some time in Puerto Rico, when it rains big, even though there's a lot of trees, mud flows, the water finds the lowest location, and then it just picks up speed. And that's what we have here right now. Is there are lots of rescues going on down there. A nice field of altocumulus. This was in Herzegovina. Today, you'll see those. They used to call them fish scales, but it's just an altocumulus cloud, and rarely do you see it from horizon to horizon. The fields aren't typically that large. All right, we're looking at Eta and where it may go, and Mike was just commenting on the shape of the snake, but it was the eyes and the tongue that I think he's added on to that nonetheless. But heavy rains down in Nicaragua, Honduras, and then it's going to snake back out over the Western Caribbean, cross Cuba, and then just toy with the Gulf Coast once again. Notice that IBM moniker, that logo? IBM has just taken over the weather world. They really have bought a lot of properties. They're doing their own models. They have Weather Underground, which is a collective of amateur observers and amateur weather stations. And so they're just really investing some money in getting into the field, and they have spent a lot of money. A lot of companies I used to know that were independent are have now been absorbed under that name. Hey, over there, Vicky and Donald. All right, more going on with this is actually the actual forecast, as it is a depression right now, back over storm strength, and we'll see what happens. Models for it's probably 10 days now have been tracking the storm. They've been, I don't want to say freakishly accurate, but they've been locking onto some kind of entity and then taking off to the north. Again, more flooding. This particular one outside of Spain, north of Seville, as they're dealing with some heavy fall rain. So just kind of crazy things. All right, Northern Lights, there were some more last night, but as you can see, that Aurora field, the forecast, not quite as intense as we've seen over the last couple of nights for the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. The magnetic field of the planet kind of works in resonance. If the North is doing something, there is a similar effect out of the South Pole. It's all connected. I'm telling you, it's just all connected. All right, from the Interagency Fire Center, 3 new large fires were reported today in Idaho, Utah, and Wisconsin. That one blew me away. As much snow and cold weather has fallen up there. I'm curious to see, read in on that one, get some videos. But right now, 36 large fires have burned 3.1 million acres across 10 states. That's the count right now. 2 were contained, so that is the good news. All right, we'll look at the satellite imagery out west, where we can see the sunset terminator marching across the ocean, and there's some moisture out there. We can see the granularity of the clouds up in the northern Pacific, and that typically belies some cool air aloft, and we get that cumulus kind of bubbling out from the warmer ocean. But the western states, for all intents and purposes, kind of on the dry side, still smoke in the central valleys of California. There's a fire signature there in central Idaho. There's another one there in Oregon. But these are locations that will see some precipitation. This is the 10-day forecast. This was the ECMWF, the European model, and I won't get their latest full run until after I go to bed. The data arrives here stateside well after the American models. Even though I kind of tend to like the ECMWF, it has proven itself to be a fairly accurate model. A lot of terrain-induced precip here. You can see it highlighted with dry areas and wet areas, southwest of Colorado and the western Colorado in particular, going to do well over the next couple of days. The other fat signature are the Cascades and coastal ranges of the Pac Northwest, and then across Montana. And this is Eta being reconstituted, and these are stripes of showers. So we'll see how that belies. These are forecast highs for tomorrow. We're already beginning to see this. This is updated. So we've got Aberdeen, South Dakota at 76, Billings 76. There's some big numbers up here as we head into deep into the first week of November. So some really nice warm conditions. Phoenix, this would 98 degrees would put it 5 degrees above the record high of 93 back in 07. Their period of record going back into the late 1800s. Reno at 76, just shy of a record from 1980. It looks good. Palm Springs at 97, the old record 96. Imperial 94, the old record 93. Glasgow, Montana 69, tying the old record set in 1912. El Paso 82 is the old record, and tomorrow forecast to be 83, so a degree above the record. So a lot of places will likely see their warmest weather, their warmest day of their period of record, which in many instances goes back to the late 1800s. All right, 13 miles west of Winter Haven, California, the warm spot today, -2 at Estcourt Station in Maine. So a little sub-zero action. There's Eta back down there. Winds down to 35 miles an hour. We'll deal with the forecast of it. It's kind of out of view of the satellite imagery. But the West, the nation's really enjoying some very, very nice November. I should update this because this is like late afternoon. The East is already cooling off. Let's update this since I've been kind of occupied doing some things in the intervening time. We could look at some current readings. 30s showing up in the Black Hills of South Dakota, also in Star Valley, Wyoming, down to 36 degrees, whereas much of the middle of the nation really enjoying a very comfortable afternoon. Why? Or evening? South winds. The south winds have begun. In fact, the Chinook off the Canadian Rockies and the west winds across the Dakotas, south winds through Kansas. It doesn't matter the time of year. Once the winds shift from east to then south and then eventually southwest, but southeasterly component, you can get some moisture. You can begin to draw up those higher dew points, which are trying to press ashore just outside of Victoria, Texas. They're not quite into Louisiana. There's still a beautiful night in the Big Easy, just gorgeous. But that high pressure is now off the eastern seaboard, and that opens the door. And as that door opens, the moisture begins to surge northbound. A few showers like yesterday, mostly confined to the Pac Northwest, the Olympic Peninsula, and the Puget Sound region, maybe even in Vancouver, Oregon, getting some of that activity. All right, yesterday we talked about the ridge in place, that nice ridge arcing over the nation. It kind of takes a bit of a beating, and we get some activity, some storminess. What that ultimately means is these fires that have been going on for so long finally get some water. This is what I like to see, is a very long stretch of the jet stream out over the Pacific. I prefer it not to come from the northwest, but from the southwest. The southwest is where the tropical moisture resides. I'm going to come back here. See down here, down to the southwest. This is where the water is. So if we can tap this water and then bring it through California, that just opens the door to replenish the soils and the reservoirs, and just to begin to get some things green. where they don't have the freezing temperatures through the depth of the winter. So we'll see if that manifests, but we just can't have this ridge pop right back up and just be the Three Gorges Dam holding the water back. It can't hold. It's got to give way so we can get some of this moisture into the Pacific Northwest. I'm going to run through this quickly, and then we'll look at precip totals. Pink is a mix, blue is snow, green is rain, and then here's your data on up here. The black lines are the pressure lines showing you where the south winds are, and down here is Eta, just being that persistent, annoying child. That right here, it's just north of Havana. Come next Monday night, and it looks like it's redeveloping. It's probably a Category 2 hurricane as it just glances the Florida Keys. Meanwhile, in the west, widespread snow all the way from Rosedale, Oregon, through northern Utah into Colorado, and that continues off to the east. And then here's the hurricane. It's fully constituted. This is pressure 965, 977. That's enough to be running 120-mile-an-hour winds. It finds its way back ashore on the Yucatan and then weakens. So we'll see what happens with this guy. But ultimately, what I really want to see is rain into California. All right, let's look at snow. We're back to the European model, generating a very healthy snow for southwestern Canada, western Montana, central Idaho, western Wyoming over the next 10 days, and as well as the Sierra Cascades. All right, last map, and then we'll wind this up for the night. What we're doing, this is the breadth of the heat across the North American continent right now. The red is above normal temperatures. I'll show you the scale. It's way down here, from as much as probably 20 below normal in the Yukon across the Northwest Territories to the above normal readings, which is where this is in southern Alberta, basically Kalispell, Whitefish, Montana, on up towards Calgary, not quite to Edmonton, but nonetheless, the warmth is stretched across the northern tier of the U.S. As we animate this every single day, but day by day, we can see the coolness taking shape across the west and then spreading eastbound, meaning we've got a couple of days of nice weather. Certainly through most of the weekend, it's going to be nice. And even through much of next week across the eastern part of the nation, way above normal temperatures. But the cool air will arrive, and that'll come in slowly from the west. It looks like the really cold stuff across southern Canada, right in through here, begins to work its way south. It shows up in northern Montana, where it's as much as 20, 30 degrees below normal. Doesn't really, break loose or intensify. That's about as cold as it gets across Montana, and that's largely because of all of this snow that will fall. It is, and let's get some totals. I can come over here. I can do this. I can go into total snow, run this baby out to the end, and we're 30, 40 inches out over the plains, not even in the mountains, but just out over the plains across northwestern Montana, north central Montana, Miles City, and so forth. So that's going to be quite the event for the Big Sky Country as they move to this weekend and into early next week. Okay, let me canter this screen just a little bit so I can see you guys over there. As you get older, these progressive glasses, they're a blessing, but at the same time, they're kind of a curse. So yes, Jane, this is the new time. That's where we're going to be at 9 o'clock. It's a little bit later. Kind of did this hoping that there'd be some more eyeballs. Plus, as we changed times here in the States, our other show on alternating days would have conflicted. So we just thought it would be best to just move a little bit later in the evening. There may be some nights where I'm like, oh, I'm just done. I want to go to bed, or I want to do this and that, but we'll be here. So Don writes, so is the Aurora Borealis at the South Pole too? I guess that would be the logical conclusion. Aurora Australis, as they give it a slightly different name rather than Borealis, but it's still the same thing. It's the Southern Hemisphere gets just a slightly different name. Yes, creating a lot of flooding. And yeah, exactly, Vic, enjoy that warm now because we'll be cuddled up next to the fireplace. At least out west, beginning this weekend is when that snow will arrive for us, sometime Saturday, Sunday. And I don't know that here in the San Luis Valley where we are, we'll get that much because so much of that is going to be wrung out by the San Juans just to our west. So we'll have to wait to see if the storm, the models catch it. It comes a little bit farther south. Maybe like the snow in early September, we might be able to pick up 10 inches. But right now, that just doesn't appear to be terribly in the cards. Donald, why? Wow, 2020 has been really crazy, crazy weather, crazy everything. I'm afraid to ask what next year brings. At the very least, I know how to swim. And if I have to choose between sink or swim, I will swim. That's always the best thing to do. All right, guys, catch you tomorrow at 9 o'clock Mountain. We'll wrap up things that are happening, and we'll see where this little I could use a four-letter word right there. This show is going to end up on the big screen. All right, we'll catch you tomorrow. In the meantime, have a great night and keep looking up. Mars is out there to the east. It's big and bright and orange. Keep looking up.